Chinedu was bone-thin. His eyes were sunken deep into his skull, his breathing was heavy and labored, and his skin was pale and sweaty. Beside him was the small plate containing the last piece of soaked bread. He hadn't even finished it. Amara. Chinedu whispered weakly, trying to lift his small hand. You came back early. Did you bring food? Amara fell to her knees beside the mattress and pulled her brother into her arms, weeping bitterly. I'm here, my baby. I'm here. Richard stood frozen by the doorway. He was a billionaire. He spent millions on champagne watches and parties that meant nothing. He watched Isabella throw away hundreds of thousands of dollars on a single handbag. And right here in this dark, wretched room, a little boy was dying simply because he couldn't afford basic medicine. A single tear escaped Richard's eye and rolled down his cheek. He didn't wipe it away. He pulled out his phone and made a call. His voice was commanding, filled with absolute authority. Dr. Martins, bring the VIP mobile ambulance unit to the Makoko slums immediately. Bring the best pediatric cardiologist you have. Prepare the presidential suite at the hospital. I don't care what it costs, just get here in 10 minutes. Amara looked up at Richard, her eyes wide with shock. Sir, what are you doing? Richard knelt down on the dirty floor right next to Amara and Chinedu. He didn't care that his designer suit was getting stained with mud. He gently placed his large, warm hand on the little boy's forehead. I am doing what I should have done a long time ago, Richard said softly, looking at Amara. You saved me today, Amara. You showed me that true humanity still exists in this dark world. Now it is my turn to save you. Less than 15 minutes later, the wail of ambulance sirens filled the slum. The neighborhood watched in absolute awe as highly trained paramedics rushed into the tiny shack, placed little Chinedu on a stretcher, and hooked him up to an oxygen tank. Amara held onto her brother's hand, crying tears of pure disbelief as they loaded him into the ambulance. Richard stood beside her, his hand resting protectively on her shoulder. Go with him to the hospital, Richard said gently. Everything is paid for. The surgery, the recovery, everything. You will never have to worry about a hospital bill again. Amara fell to the ground trying to kiss Richard's shoes. Thank you. Thank you, my lord. You are an angel sent by God. How can I ever repay you? Richard quickly pulled her up from the ground. Do not kneel for me, Amara. I'm just a man. Now go. Your brother needs you. As the ambulance sped off toward the city's most expensive private hospital, Richard watched it disappear. His heart felt lighter than it had in years. He realized that all his money, all his businesses, meant nothing compared to the feeling of saving a life. But back at the mansion, a dark storm was brewing. Isabella and Madame Gloria had not gone far. They had met up at a local bar just outside the estate. Both women were burning with humiliation, jealousy, and rage. They had lost everything they had built. Isabella had lost her billionaire fiancé and her life of extreme luxury, and Madame Gloria had lost her high-paying job and her power over the staff. And it was all because of one poor, insignificant cleaner. I will not let that street rat take my place, Isabella hissed, slamming her glass on the table. Her eyes were wild with malice. Richard thinks he can just dump me and play the hero for some dirty beggar? I will destroy her. I will make her regret the day she was born. Madame Gloria sneered, her face twisted with a wicked plot. Madame Isabella, I know how we can get to her. That girl loves her sick brother more than her own life. Something were to happen to that little boy, she would be completely broken. And Richard would realize that associating with poor trash only brings bad luck. Isabella slowly smiled, a cold, evil grin spreading across her face. Gloria, you are a genius. We are going to find out exactly which hospital Richard took them to. And we are going to make sure that little boy never wakes up from his surgery. At the City Hope VIP hospital, Amara felt like she had woken up in a dream. Little Chinedu was resting on a soft, mechanical hospital bed, surrounded by state-of-the-art medical equipment. The room looked like a five-star hotel suite, complete with a flat-screen TV, a leather sofa and a private bathroom. For the first time in his life, Chinedu was not shivering from the cold or sweating from the heat. He was sleeping peacefully. Amara sat beside him holding his small hand. She had been given a warm bath, a set of clean, beautiful clothes and a hot plate of fried rice and chicken. But she couldn't eat. Her heart was too full of gratitude. The door opened softly and Richard walked in. He had changed out of his muddy suit and was now wearing a simple fitted black shirt and trousers. He looked at Amara and smiled gently. "Why haven't you touched your food, Amara?" Richard asked, pulling up a chair to sit beside her. I am overwhelmed, sir," Amara whispered, tears shining in her eyes again. "I keep thinking I will wake up and find myself back in that leaky shack. You have done too much for me. I don't know how to thank you." "You don't need to thank me," Richard said, his voice deep and sincere. "In a world where everyone wears a mask, you showed me true honesty. That $10 million would have been a loss to my company, yes, but discovering a heart as pure as yours is worth more than all the money in my bank accounts." He reached out and gently wiped a tear from her cheek. Amara's heart skipped a beat. No man had ever looked at her with such respect and care. To everyone else she was just a dirty cleaner. But to Richard she was a queen in disguise. "The doctors said they will perform the surgery tomorrow morning," Richard continued. "He is in the best hands. You need to rest, Amara. Tomorrow is a big day." But tomorrow was almost stolen from them. It was 2 a.m. The hospital corridors were dead quiet. The nurses at the front desk were busy filling out charts. The lights were dimmed. Outside the hospital a taxi pulled up into the shadows. Isabella and Madame Gloria stepped out. They were both dressed in stolen blue nurses' scrubs, with surgical masks covering half of their faces. Isabella's eyes burned with a wicked, demonic fire. She held a small syringe in her pocket, filled with a dangerous, untraceable chemical she had bought from the black market. "Are you sure about this, Madame Isabella?" Madame Gloria whispered, her hands shaking slightly. "If we are caught, this is murder." "Shut up, you coward," Isabella hissed, glaring at her. "Richard humiliated me today. He took my ring. He threw me out like a dog. And it is all because of that wretched cleaner. When her brother dies tonight, her spirit will be broken forever. And Richard will realize that bringing gutter trash into his life only brings death. Now follow me and keep your head down." The two wicked women sneaked through the back entrance of the hospital. Madame Gloria had bribed a corrupt security guard to leave the door unlocked. They crept up the stairs, avoiding the main cameras, and finally reached the VIP floor. Room 402. Chinedu's room. Isabella slowly pushed the door open. The room was dark, illuminated only by the soft blue glow of the heart monitor. On the sofa, Amara was fast asleep, exhausted from the long, emotional day. On the bed lay little Chinedu, breathing softly through his oxygen mask. A cruel, evil smile stretched across Isabella's face behind her mask. "Say goodbye to your little brother, you street rat," she whispered to herself. Isabella tiptoed to the side of the bed. She pulled the syringe from her pocket. She reached for Chinedu's 4-tube, preparing to inject the deadly poison directly into his bloodstream. Madame Gloria stood by the door, keeping watch, sweating profusely. Isabella raised the syringe. She was just 1 inch away from the tube. Suddenly, click, the entire room lit up with blinding white light. Music. Loud, dramatic, heart-stopping clash. Isabella gasped, dropping the syringe on the floor. Madame Gloria screamed in pure terror. Standing in the corner of the room, stepping out from the shadows of the adjoining private bathroom, was Mr. Richard Cole. Behind him stood 3 massive, heavily armed private security guards, and 2 uniformed police officers. Amara woke up with a start, gasping as she saw the people in the room. She quickly ran to protect her brother, throwing her body over Chinedu. Isabella froze, her eyes wide with absolute horror. She was trapped. "Did you honestly think," Richard's voice thundered through the room, cold, deadly, and full of authority, "that a VIP suite paid for by Richard Cole would not have 24-hour surveillance and private security?" Isabella pulled off her mask, her hands shaking violently. "Richard, I can explain. I was just checking on the boy." "Checking on him with a syringe full of poison?" Richard roared, pointing at the syringe on the floor. "I knew you were greedy, Isabella. I knew you were wicked. But I never knew you were a monster. You came here to murder an innocent 7-year-old child just to satisfy your jealousy." "No. It was her," Isabella screamed, pointing a shaking finger at Madame Gloria. "It was Gloria's idea. She planned everything. She hates the maid." "Liar. You wicked liar." Madame Gloria wailed, falling to her knees and grabbing the police officer's legs. "She bought the poison. She forced me to come. Please, I am a mother. Have mercy." It is the work of the devil. The devil is standing right here in this room, Richard said in disgust, looking at both of them. He turned to the police officers. Officers, you have the hidden camera footage and you have the weapon. Arrest them. I want them charged with attempted murder. And make sure they never see the light of day again. No. Richard, please. You can't do this to me. I am a high-class woman. I cannot go to prison. Isabella screamed and kicked as the police officers aggressively handcuffed her. You belong in the gutters, Richard replied coldly, throwing her own words back at her. Madame Gloria cried out, weeping bitterly, regretting the day she ever decided to maltreat a poor innocent girl. But her tears were useless. Karma had served its final dish. The police dragged both women out of the room, their screams echoing down the hallway until they were completely gone. Amara sat on the bed holding Chinedu, crying and shaking from the shock. Richard walked over to her and gently wrapped his arms around her trembling shoulders. It's over, Amara, he whispered softly, holding her close. They will never hurt you or your brother ever again. You are safe now. I promise you. The next morning the sun rose brightly over the city, washing away the darkness of the night. It was time for Chinedu's surgery. Amara paced the waiting room, holding her late mother's old rosary, praying with everything she had. Richard stayed by her side the entire time. He cancelled all his billionaire meetings, ignored his ringing phones and sat on the hospital chair just to hold Amara's hand. After 5 grueling hours the theater doors finally opened. The head surgeon walked out, pulling off his mask. He looked exhausted, but he had a wide smile on his face. Mr. Cole. Amara, the doctor said. The surgery was a massive success. The hole in his heart is completely repaired. Little Chinedu is going to live a long, healthy and normal life. Amara screamed with joy. She fell to her knees, praising God, tears of pure happiness flooding her face. Richard knelt beside her, laughing and hugged her tightly. The heavy burden of sorrow she had carried for 3 long years was finally lifted. 1 year later. The Cole estate was buzzing with joy and laughter. The sun was shining on the beautiful gardens. A little boy ran across the green grass, chasing a golden retriever puppy. It was Chinedu. He was no longer the frail, dying boy on a torn mattress. He was chubby, healthy, wearing a smart little suit and full of boundless energy. Chinedu, don't run too fast. You will ruin your clothes, a sweet melodic voice called out. It was Amara. But she was no longer the poor, suffering maid in a faded uniform. She was breathtakingly beautiful. She wore a stunning flowing white dress. Her skin glowed, her hair was styled elegantly, and she carried herself with the grace of a true queen. Over the past year Richard's life had completely transformed. He had sponsored Amara's education, sending her to a top university to finish her degree in business management. He had bought her and Chinedu a beautiful house, but Amara preferred spending all her time at the estate with him. She brought light, laughter and true peace into Richard's stressful billionaire life. Richard walked out onto the patio watching Amara and Chinedu play. His heart swelled with a kind of love money could never buy. He walked down the steps and approached Amara. You look incredibly beautiful today, Richard said, wrapping his arms around her waist from behind. Amara smiled, leaning back into his chest. And you look very handsome, Mr. Cole. Are you not supposed to be at the office? The office can wait, Richard said softly. He gently turned her around to face him. He looked deep into her eyes. Amara, a year ago you found a piece of paper that belonged to me. You returned it, and in doing so you saved my life. You saved me from a toxic relationship and you showed me what true love and honesty look like. Amara's breath hitched as Richard slowly went down on one knee. He pulled out a small velvet box and opened it, revealing a diamond ring that sparkled under the sun. It was far more beautiful and meaningful than the one Isabella used to wear. You refused my $10 million, Richard whispered, his eyes shining with emotion. But today I am offering you something far more valuable. I am offering you my heart, my name and my life. Amara, will you do me the honor of becoming my wife? Tears of absolute joy rolled down Amara's cheeks. She looked at Chinedu, who was cheering and clapping his hands, and then back at the man who had changed her destiny. Yes, Richard, she cried, nodding her head. Yes, 1,000,000 times yes. Richard slipped the ring onto her finger, stood up and spun her around in the air as they both laughed freely. Their joy echoed through the estate. Amara, the poor rejected maid, became the beloved wife of a billionaire. She didn't win his heart with expensive clothes, fake smiles, or manipulation. She won his heart with her integrity, her kindness, and her pure soul. Meanwhile, Isabella and Madame Gloria sat in a cold, dark prison cell, regretting the day they chose wickedness over humanity, left with absolutely nothing. Integrity is a currency that never loses its value. When you find yourself in the darkest situations, never let desperation push you to do evil. A clean conscience is worth more than all the gold in the world. Also, never look down on anyone because of their current situation. The person sweeping your floor today might just hold the key to your salvation tomorrow. Pride and wickedness will always lead to destruction, but humility, honesty, and kindness will open doors that no human being can ever shut. The end. Thank you so much for watching, besties. If this story touched your heart, please share your thoughts in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, share, and hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another inspiring story from us. See you in the next video.